On July 30th, 1863, a boy was born in the city of Springwells, Michigan. His name was Henry. Henry's father was a farmer during a time when farming was one of the most laborious occupations. Without the modern tools we have today, they had to work hard from morning till night in the fields, hoping to harvest a crop if it wasn't affected by pests. As Henry grew up, he witnessed the hardships his father endured, and his heart ached for him. As a result, he developed a strong aversion to farming. Despite his father being a farmer and Henry himself having to engage in farming, he knew that there was a better opportunity waiting for him nearby, and it was improving day by day. You should know that the city of Detroit, located 12 kilometers from Henry's village, was the most important industrial city in America. It was the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution in America. Being close to this city exposed Henry to industries and technology. At the age of 12, Henry became so interested in technology that he wanted to be involved in technical work. For example, when a neighbor's clock broke, he said, "I can fix it," even though he had no idea how it worked. He just had the desire to open it up and see how it was made. When Henry turned 14, he saw a steam-powered engine for the first time. His entire focus shifted to it, and he thought, "I need to understand how this works." He tried to get a job at the railroad to learn how steam engines worked on locomotives. He approached the railroad administration many times, but they told him he was not of legal age and couldn't be given a job. They said, "Come back when you're 16. However, when Henry turned 16, instead of going for a job at the railroad, he went to work for a mechanic who repaired these engines. In 1880, when Henry was 17 years old, he encountered something fascinating. An Englishman showed him a gasoline engine, which was built by Nikolaus Otto in Germany. Nikolaus Otto hadn't built this engine for any particular purpose. He just wanted to show that gasoline could be used instead of steam. Though young, when Henry saw this gasoline engine, his mind became completely absorbed in the possibilities it presented. He pondered over its functioning and completely understood its fuel system, but he couldn't figure out its electrical system, how the spark plug ignited the mixture. He said to himself, "I need to learn about electricity." He went to the branch of Edison Electric in Detroit and requested a job. They gave him a job because he wanted to delve into electricity. This branch of the Edison Company provided electricity to around 1,000 homes in that area. Henry works so well in this company that he goes higher every day, and when he reaches the age of 28, he becomes the CEO of this company. It is in this position that he also builds his first gasoline engine in the workshop of this company. When his engine is ready, he tells himself that he should improve it and put it on a carriage so that it becomes a car. The first car, made by Henry Ford in 1896, when he is 33 years old, is ready. He named the car Quadricycle. Henry also made a 2-speed gearbox for his car. However, his engine did not have a radiator, so it would get hot after a few minutes of running. Finally, Henry adds a radiator to his car. Meanwhile, a customer appears and offers $200 for his car. Henry says, "Even better, I'll take the money and build a better one." He receives $200, which is equivalent to $6,000 today, and delivers the car to the customer. Henry builds another quadricycle, but not for sale. He wanted to conduct various experiments and identify the flaws in the quadricycle. Eventually, in 1899, he opens a company and names it Ford Motor Company, a name that still exists. You know that Edison was a major investor, and capitalists would come to invest in his company. Ford was previously the CEO of Edison's company. That's why all the investors knew him until they found out that he had started this new company. They said, we will go to his company and invest because we know the person behind it." And he starts producing quadricycles in his factory, but things don't go well. For 2 years, everyone works, but they can only produce 20 quadricycles. Henry wonders why it takes so long. How can we increase our production? The company was not profitable in this situation. So many investors asked for their money back. The investors took their money one by one, which not only put the factory to sleep but also caused the factory to go out of business. After that, Henry became poor again. You know that successful people never give up easily. Despite his poverty, Henry was always thinking about how to start a factory that could have high production. Henry thought about what to do with paper and pen, how to produce a successful car. He designed a car that was better than the quadricycle. at least on paper. But as he designed the car, he also thought about the concept of an assembly line. These designs and thoughts by Henry Ford led to one of the most important inventions of the 20th century, the assembly line, which did not exist until that day. When we reach 1905, Henry gathers himself and launches another factory. A factory where the assembly line is created. Just 1 year later, in 1906, 300 people work on this assembly line and 25 Ford Model T cars are produced every day. If it weren't for the invention of the assembly line, it would not have been possible. The assembly line was working. However, Henry was not satisfied. He said it should be better and faster. In the same year, 1906, Henry does another important thing. He opens another company called Ford Engine Company, which specializes in producing engines and gearboxes. He no longer had to get engines or gearboxes from someone else. This move by Henry Ford increased the speed of the assembly line and made the cars cheaper because the longest time they wasted was waiting for parts from the assembly line. Ford said, "I want to produce a car that ordinary people can buy because until then, cars were for the wealthy and kings." In 1908, the first Ford Model T emerged in the following manner: a hassle-free and affordable car. Because it was intended to be cheap, it was only produced in black. Ford succeeded in creating a car that everyone could afford. The Model T, introduced in 1908, had a price of $850. When the Model T was unveiled and people saw its picture in the newspapers, they attacked the company. Within a week, they placed 25,000 orders. The demand was so high that they couldn't deliver all of them in the first year, but they managed to deliver around 17,000. When Henry Ford realized the success of his idea, he set up another, much larger factory with a bigger production line. Henry Ford's vision was to make this production line faster and more efficient. As a result, production increased steadily each year. By the time we reached 1910, they were delivering over 20,000 Model T cars. However, only 6 years later, in 1916, Ford was producing 500,000 Model T cars per year. Henry Ford wanted not only to make a profit, but also for people to benefit from his cars. That's why he increased production, which in turn lowered the prices of the cars. Despite producing the cheapest car in the world, you should remember that in 1908, the Ford Model T cost $850. But 8 years later, in 1916, it was even lower at $360, which was less than half the initial price. Ford used to say that every American should have one car. Henry Ford had built such a revolutionary and advanced company that for over 20 years, it had no competitors in the world. In those years, over 60% of the cars in America were Ford Model Ts, until finally, other companies were able to start competing with Ford in the late 1920s. Companies like Dodge Brothers, Chrysler, and General Motors. You should know that at that time, Dodge Brothers and Chrysler were not together. During this period, Henry Ford was one of the richest people in the world, although not richer than John D. Rockefeller or Andrew Carnegie. Moreover, it should be noted that Adolf Hitler took inspiration from Henry Ford for the Volkswagen. Hitler liked Ford so much that he always had a picture of him in his office, saying that he was a hero because he had launched a revolution for himself. Henry Ford remained the head of the company until the age of 81, and the company is no longer the same as before. The company had become so influential that during World War II, Boeing's bombers were built in the Ford company. The reason was that they needed a large number of bombers, and Boeing's facilities were insufficient. Therefore, they turned to the largest company in America, Ford, to start building bombers. In 1945, when Henry Ford was 81 years old and suffering from heart problems, he stepped down as the head of the company and handed it over to his grandson, Henry Ford II, because his son had passed away 2 years before that date due to stomach cancer. However, he did not like retirement, so 2 years later in 1947, he passed away due to a heart attack. Today, Ford Motor Company is one of the largest automotive companies in the world. The company is publicly traded, but the Ford family still holds significant power in the company. They control 40% of the company themselves. This company produces cars on 5 continents, and some of its products are the best-selling in the world, such as their Ford F-150 truck.